So last time we were talking about industrial relations. So just to recap as to what we've talked about under industrial relations. So industrial relations, it is the interaction between the three players. Now, who are these three players? They are the employees, and employees represented by trade unions. Then you have the employers. The employers also form association. So, they can work towards the development of the industry. And then, of course, the government. So these are the three players for industrial relationship. We also looked into what does industrial relationship mean, and we looked into the definition of industrial relationship. So, as I said, it is an interaction, it is a day to day association, it is the day to day working between the employees and the employers. So, this relationship actually, if you talk about this relationship, it's a healthy relationship. Of course, that's going to help in the working of the entire industry, in the development of the entire industry. But if this relationship is not healthy, then that is going to lead to a lot of problems. That is going to lead to strikes. That's going to lead to unhealthy working environments. So the workers wouldn't be happy, the employers wouldn't be happy, and they are not moving towards an objective, which is the development. So that is not happening. The interactions are not something that is, the relationship should be such that both of them should work together in order to achieve development, in order to achieve their common goals. So the relationship, where so again we said the employer employee, yes. Now where does the government come in? Why are we also talking about the government as the third player when it comes to industrial relations? Because there are multiple regulations, there are multiple laws that are passed by the government which help, and of course we in the interest of social justice. So because if you see pre-independence era, we'll be talking about the history of industrial relation in India as well. So if you see in the pre-independence era, there weren't many legislations that would safeguard the interests, safeguard the rights of the workers. It was said that the employers are the ones who dictate terms on the workers, right? So the workers do not stand a chance to have any rights in the first place. There's no scope for protecting their rights. They don't even have rights in the first place. So so of course the employers were dominating, the employers were making policies, the employers were hiring and firing workers according to the demand. So of course, according to the external factors like demand, market situation, technology. Now also, if you see the recent trend, AI taking over jobs. You must have heard about this, where AI is taking over the jobs of workers, of these employees. So again, so these factors, these external factors play a very important role when it comes to industrial relations. Now, in order to cater to social justice, in order to safeguard the interests of the workers, the government came up with legislations, laws in order to protect these workers. So these legislations, these laws, they also came up with laws where, how industrial disputes could be resolved. Because if there are industrial disputes, that's going to hamper the relationship between the employee and the employer. So, statutory methods, when I say statutory methods, that is legal methods, methods that are provided by the government in a law. So these methods help to resolve the dispute between the employees and the employers. So where does the government come in? The laws that the government pass, and the laws become binding on the employers and employees. So we have to, as Indians, we have to follow all the laws that are passed by the government. We cannot say that we are not going to follow any of the laws. So we have to follow all laws. So this becomes important for the employees and employers to follow the laws that are passed by the government. So that is the reason why the government is also one of the players, because social legislation, we are a country which, encourage social justice, justice to the weaker section of the society. So we want to give them few more rights. And workers, employees were said to be the weaker section of the society. So they were given these beneficial legislations, these laws which benefit the workers, they were enacted by the government. So we looked into that. All right. We also looked into the scope of industrial relationship, so labor relations, the industrial relation between the labor union and the management, the employer employee relationship, the role of various parties in maintaining industrial relation. We've seen all this in the last session. We saw who are the different actors when it comes to industrial relations. Okay, moving forward. So what are we also looked into the role of an industrial manager. So who is an industrial relationship manager, industrial relation manager, IR manager. So he's a person who is a bridge between the employee and the employer. So he's a person who is going to, he's going to make sure that there is coordination, there is cooperation between the employer and the employer. So if employees have any disputes, the employees have any grievance against the employers, then it is the industrial relation who's going to hear these grievances, and then he's going to forward those grievances to the employer so that the employers can work towards resolution of those grievances. So he's the person who is responsible for maintaining healthy relationship between employees and employers. So his role is very critical when it comes to maintenance of industrial relation. So we also saw the key areas where he does provide his services. That's something that we've seen yesterday. So generally for the maintenance of the industrial relation, so he is the person, his primary object is to maintain the industrial relation. Secondly, to make sure that the employees interests, so whenever policy decisions are being taken by the employer, then he'll also be called in, and he will represent the employees in wherever the employer is taking any policy decision, so that the employees' interests can also be safeguarded in those policy decisions. There is also contribution. We're going to also be looking into we're going to be looking into industrial democracy. So where even employees, so generally it is said that employees do not have any role in making policy decisions for the industry. It is the employer, it is the person who is hiring them, the employers, who only have the right to make policy decisions. The employees cannot make policy decisions. But now this outlook is changing in order to maintain that harmony in the industry, that even the voices of the employees are heard when any policy decisions are made by the employers. So again, so in order to make those policy decisions, it is the IR manager, the industrial relation manager, who will be the representative of the employees, and he will put forward the concerns of the employees whenever any policy decision is to be made by the management. Also, he's the person who is going to his again another key responsibility of an industrial relation manager is to make sure that all the statutory compliances are made by the industry. So all statutory compliance in respect to the all laws. So whether he's complying, whether the industry is complying with all the provisions of the law. So he's the person who's going to check that. So he's the person who's going to check whether the company is, or whether the industry is complying with all the legal formalities, all the laws. It is complying with all the laws. It is providing with the same welfare facilities which the law is talking about. It is providing the same facilities to the employees that the law is talking about, so that all compliances will be looked into by the IR manager. Then we also talked about industrial disputes last time, and because we're going to be continuing with industrial disputes. So industrial disputes are disputes between employees, employers, employees, employees, employers, employees. So we've seen that, okay? And it is in connection with employment, the terms of employment. And that in a way is going to hamper the entire environment of the industry. So the productivity is going to drop because of the industrial dispute. There's going to be a tussle between the employer and the employee. So everything gets disrupted because of the industrial dispute. And we have seen, so we also looked into the definition of industrial dispute, which is given under Section 2K of the Industrial Disputes Act 1947. So we saw what are the general causes of industrial disputes. So it could be irrational policy decisions that are taken by the employers, where the employers do not consider the concerns of the employees. There are no pay, more work, less pay. So the environment under which the employees are working is not really safeguarded. So there are no protective measures that are taken by the employers. So any of these, and we've already seen new technology now, AI coming in, and employees losing their jobs because of the advent of AI. That could also be a reason for industrial dispute. So we've seen ample of industrial disputes, the general causes of industrial disputes. We also saw the different measures that could be taken in order to resolve industrial disputes. So the different measures are, there are non-statutory. When I say non-statutory methods, it means that the methods that are not provided to like under laws. So they are not very binding, where until and unless there's something that is provided under the law, if there is any violation of that, then you can, of course, go to the court against the violation. But if it is non-statutory, then it is not under any law, generally not very binding, until and unless there's some agreement. If there is an agreement, of course, you can go to the courts against the breach of the agreement. So non-statutory methods, we saw the non-statutory methods. There could be a code of discipline, tripartite machinery, workers' participation in the management. So even workers participating in the management of the industry, where the workers' voices are heard, their concerns are heard, and policy decisions are made after consulting with the employees. So that also helps a lot in maintaining or in resolving industrial disputes. And collective bargaining scheme, we're going to be talking a lot about collective bargaining. It is a method through which the employers and the employees, they try to bargain a middle ground, and then that also helps in resolving disputes. So we're going to be talking about this. Then also their label admin. So government machinery also helps a lot, be it at center, be it at state. So government machinery also helps a lot in dispute resolution, industrial dispute resolution. So we talked about labor courts, we talked about uh, tribunals being formed, labor tribunals being formed at different levels in order to resolve disputes. And of course, statutory measures, we saw what conciliation is, what arbitration is. We also saw adjudication. So adjudication, you can go to these tribunals, you can go to these labor courts in order to have the disputes resolved. And of course, conciliation, arbitration, works committees formed. It is sort of an internal committee that is formed by the employers, and employee representatives also form part of the committee. So representatives of the employer and representatives of the employee, they form this committee. And whenever there's any dispute between the employer employee, then the employees or can forward their dispute to the works committee, and the works committee will try and resolve the dispute. Conciliation, there is a conciliation officer who's been appointed by the government, and this conciliation officer will try and settle the disputes between the parties, be it a dispute between employer, employee, whatever be the case. So the conciliation officer will try to settle the dispute. It is a settlement procedure. This is it's a voluntary procedure. So, of course, the conciliation officer is not going to impose his decision. He does not give a decision. He only tries to convince the parties to settle the disputes. He'll come up with certain terms for settlement, and if both the parties agree with the terms of settlement, then of course they can have it settled. So there will be a settlement agreement that would be signed by both the parties. And based on the settlement agreement, then both the parties have to, fulfill their obligations, whatever has been mentioned in the settlement agreement. But of course, sometimes it's not successful, because conciliation is a settlement process. What if both the parties do not accept the terms that have been provided by the conciliation officer? Then it is not successful. Then they can either go to the labor courts, or if they want, if there's an agreement between the two disputing parties, then they can also go for voluntary arbitration. Voluntary arbitration, because it is voluntary, it is a voluntary act of the parties. If the parties want to go for arbitration, then they can resort to arbitration. Arbitration is nothing but the resolution of dispute by a third independent private person. So an arbitrator is appointed by both the disputing parties. They mutually decide who will be the arbitrator. The arbitrator will act as a judge. He's a private person. He's not a court. Okay. He's not the judge of a court. He's a private person, but he will act like a judge. So he will be a person who will be sitting, listening to both the parties. Both the parties will produce documents before him. They will also produce evidences before him. And based on the submissions made by the parties, be it written submissions or oral submissions, based on these submissions, the arbitrator will make a decision. So here a decision is given by the arbitrator. So this is not a settlement procedure. It is a procedure by which the third independent party gives a decision, and the decision is going to be binding on both the parties. Binding on both the parties have to follow what has been decided by the arbitrator. They cannot say, oh, we didn't find it good, so we're not going to follow the decision of the arbitrator. They cannot say that. Just the way that you cannot say no to the court's judgment. So court passes any judgment, then the person, the disputing parties, it is binding on the disputing parties. The disputing parties have to follow the judgment and have to act in accordance with the judgment. So in the same manner, even though the arbitrator is a private party, is a private person, it's not court, but both the parties, because they have voluntarily decided to approach an arbitrator to to invoke arbitration as a method for dispute resolution. So any decision that is taken by the arbitrator is going to be binding on both the parties. The decision that is given by the arbitrator is known as an award. So it is not known as a judgment, like the court passes a judgment, arbitrator passes an award. So it is known as an award, and it is equally binding on both the parties. So it's another method of dispute resolution. It is said to be a method. So this conciliation and voluntary arbitration are said to be ADR methods, alternate dispute resolution methods. So they help in speedier redressal of disputes. You must have heard this. Indian courts are, there's too much of cases that are pending before the Indian courts, and it takes a very long time for Indian courts to decide these cases because of the pendency of the cases, because of the burdening of the courts with a lot of cases. So that is the reason why ADR mechanisms are on a rise as far as India is concerned. So again, arbitration could be one of the methods that could be resorted to, and these are ADR methods. These are more they are speedier methods. They are cost-effective methods. They are confidential methods. Court procedures are not confidential. So once court proceeding starts, any document that is filed before the court becomes a public document. So everybody has access to those documents. So it's not a confidential method, whereas this arbitration, conciliation, these are confidential methods. The parties can keep it a total secret. Nobody needs to know what is happening, what is the dispute about, what is happening between the two parties. Nobody needs to know about those things. So yes, we talked about the different methods of dispute resolution. So the next topic that we're going to be talking about, yes, we talked about the statutory measures. Yes, so conciliation officers, board of conciliation. There's also an inquiry, court of inquiry. So there will be an inquiry by the government. So whole matter will. So what the conciliation, if conciliation officer is looking into the matter and there is no successful redressal of the dispute, then the conciliation officer is going to he's going to prepare a report, and he's going to submit that report to the government. And then the case will be referred to an industrial tribunal for adjudication by the government itself. So the government itself will inquire into the dispute, and after inquiring into the dispute, so it will send it to the industrial court tribunal, and the court will investigate into the dispute whole matter. It will investigate, and it will then so it's like more of an investigation in order to investigate the facts in the dispute, so that the government understands what the dispute is and the government understands what would be the right method to resolve the disputes. All right. The forms of industrial disputes. So, the industrial disputes generally are in the form of strikes. You must have heard about strikes, and there has been a lot of you could say a lot of debate over whether strikes are something that are fundamental right. Under the constitution, we have certain fundamental rights. You must have heard about this. So the Indian constitution gives us certain fundamental rights. The fundamental right to free speech and expression. You must have heard that. The fundamental right, the freedom to move anywhere without any restrictions, the freedom to to life, so the right to life, the right to equality. We have certain fundamental rights that are available to us. So there has been a lot of debate over whether strikes are fundamental right to workers, because through strikes the workers can showcase their their disappointment towards the management. So if they're disappointed with the management, they can show their disappointment through strikes. They can do that. So yes. So, forms of industrial disputes, strikes. This is the most important form of industrial dispute. So, a strike is a spontaneous and concerted withdrawal of labor from production. So, it is a method by which the workers, the laborers, the employees, they decide that they are not going to continue working. They will stop working, and that is what strike is. And the Industrial Dispute Act 1947 defines a strike as suspension or cessation of work by a group of persons employed in any industry acting in combination or concerted refusal, or a refusal under a common understanding of any number of persons who are or have been so employed to continue or work or accept employment. So it is the cessation of work, it is the discontinuing of working by the employees. So the employees say no to working, and this is a concerted decision. It is a decision which is taken by all the employees together. Okay, so it is a concerted refusal. It is a refusal under the common work. So it is a decision that is commonly taken by the workers that yes, they're going to stop working. Just one employee not working is not a strike. For strike to take place, you need like a number of employees not working. So just so again, a concerted action, an action by all the employees to stop working. So that is what strike is. Again, another definition for strike is given by Patterson. So strikes constitute militant and organized protest against existing industrial relations. They are symptoms of industrial unrest in the same way that boils symptoms of disordered system. So again, something that is concerted, something that is a joint action. Okay, it's a joint action by the workers. It is like a militant action, something that is rebelling. So they are revolting against maybe certain policies that have been taken by the employers. So that is what strike is, and it is the cessation of work. It is stoppage of work. It is discontinuing working. So depending upon the purpose, the strikes have been classified into primary strike and secondary strike. So the primary strike, these strikes are generally aimed against the employees with whom the dispute has arisen or the dispute exists. So this may include the form of stay away strike, stay in strike, sit down, pen down, tools down, go slow, work to rule, token or protest strike, catcall strike, picketing or boycott. So these are the different kinds of strikes. Pen down is like, I mean, if more of intellectual kind of work, then they just are not like pen down. It's like just signifies that they're not going to be writing anymore. So yeah, pen down. So um, then tools down. If they're working with tools, then they just lay down their tools. That means they'll not be any longer using their tools. They're stopping their work. Then it could also be go slow. So they will deliberately go slow. So for example, if they're like a X number of products that can be manufactured, then like the reduction in the manufacture, or 2 times or 3 times manufacture of those goods. So that could be go slow. So there are different stay away, don't come to work, or stay in. You're just staying inside the establishment, and you're not leaving the establishment, but you're not even working in the establishment. So it could be any way, or sitting down. Or you could also have these workers who tie black ribbons on their elbows, or they tie black ribbons on their foreheads, which signify black or red, which signifies that they're protesting. So again, these are silent forms of strikes, and it should always be a non-violent form of strike. Otherwise, then of course, and there are certain rules for strikes also. So we'll be talking about the Industrial Disputes Act, and so what are the different rules? What is a legal strike? What is an illegal strike? So we'll be most probably talking about that. And secondary strike, so that's primary strike. So primary strike is a strike where the strike is aimed against the employers, okay, directly against the employers. Then secondary strike is a strike also called as the sympathy strike. In this form of strike, the pressure is applied not against the employer with whom the workman has a dispute, but against the third person who has good trade relations with the employer. So if an employer has trade relation with another employer or another establishment, and then you have you do something against this third person, which is hampering the relationship, trade relationship between the two, then of course that is going to, in a way, also going to hamper the business of the employer, the direct employer of the employee. So the employees act in such a way that they hamper the relationship between the employer and his trade associate. So they cause actions against the trade associate, so that the trade associate and the employer, maybe there is stop, so something that hampers their relationship. So that's a secondary strike. If in the form of industrial dispute, so the strikes would be the form of industrial dispute. Now, types of industrial dispute. So the ILO, the International Labour Organization. So ILO has classified industrial disputes into 2 categories. So industrial disputes, one is industrial disputes, and second is grievance or right disputes. So there are 2 categories in which industrial disputes have been categorized or classified by the International Labor Organization. So one is industrial dispute, and also known as economic disputes, and the other is grievance or right disputes. So interest disputes, also known as economic disputes, and grievance or right disputes. So now interest disputes. So what if any of the interests of the employees are getting violated, or are not getting safeguarded, or the employer is violating any of the rights of the employee? Then of course, like there's a demand for maybe a hike in the salary. So if there are layoffs, then there is a dispute. There is an interest, right? Layoffs. So you're laying off the employees. You are terminating their employment. So now, of course, that is hampering their interest. That is hampering their rights. So again, there could be a dispute against the layoffs. As I said, wages. There could be some, where the wages are being deducted by the employers for no reason, or there is no hike in the wages, there's no bonus that is being provided to the employees, and that is their right. If that is their right, if it is a statutory right that they've been given, and if they're not getting it from the employers, then there could be a dispute in respect to that. Job security could also be one of the reasons for interest dispute. When you're talking about grievance or right dispute, so now, as the name itself suggests, grievance or right dispute arise out of application or interpretation of the existing agreement or contracts between the workers in the same group. So if they have an agreement, and if the employee have an agreement, the employer has to provide certain facilities to the employee, and he then fails in providing those facilities. Now there is a grievance, because the agreement very clearly stated that these are the facilities that are to be provided by the employer to the employee, but the employer is not providing those facilities to the employee. So the employee's rights are getting hampered, his interests are getting hampered. So in such cases, now there is a dispute because there is a grievance. So this is what a grievance dispute or a right dispute is. So they relate to individual workers, or they could also relate to a group of workers. So that's why in some countries, such disputes are also known as individual disputes. So it could be working time, it could be overtime. So they've decided that the working time is going to be so and so, but the workers are still working beyond the working times. Now there is a dispute. There was an agreement that they're going to only work till 6, but every day they're working till 7. So there's a grievance. So that is a type of industrial dispute. In respect to promotion, if there's been an understanding between the employer and the employee that the promotions are going to be, given to the employees if certain conditions satisfy, and if the conditions satisfy and the employers are not providing promotions to the employees, then there is again violation of the agreements. Then for those grievances could also lead to industrial disputes. So such grievances are often settled through laid down standard procedures like the provisions of collective agreement, employment contract, work rule or law, or custom usage. So now how are these disputes redressed? We've already seen the different methods through which the disputes can be resolved. So we've seen statutory methods, like if the law gives you certain reliefs, certain remedies, then you can resort to those remedies that are provided under the law. If not law, if there's some custom or there is some usage, again in international trade, in industrial, in the industry, in business, there are certain practices that come out of customs usage. So it is because these practices have been followed for a very long time, so they become a part of the industry. So if there is some custom, there is some usage, there is some practice as to how any dispute is to be resolved, then the dispute could be resolved through those customs, through those usage. So that the two kinds of industrial disputes. The next topic that I'm going to talk about today is industrial democracy. So, what do you understand by democracy? Democracy is a form of government, if you know this. So, democracy is a form of government. So, India is a democratic country. We call it. India is a democratic country. The form of government in India is a democratic government. What do you understand by this? Where people also participate in the rule making. Okay, so it is generally who makes the laws in India? The laws are made by legislatures. Who are legislatures? They are the elected representatives of the people. So lawmaking power has been given to the elected representatives of the people. So indirectly, the laws are made by the people, because, of course, you cannot have everyone making laws. So what they do is they elect their representative who will be their voice, and he will then make laws. So again, in the same manner, industrial democracy talks about the policy decisions, the policy making as far as the industry is concerned. And we know this, that in the earlier days, if historically speaking, the policy decisions were taken by the employers. The employers thought it is their right to make policies, because they are the management of the industry. They are the ones who own the industry, and employees should not have any right in policy making, in decision making. But now this scenario is changing, and good if good relations are to be maintained between the employer and the employee, then the employee needs to be given an opportunity to participate in the policy making of the company, of the industry. Otherwise, his interests would not be safeguarded. So he has to be given an opportunity. He has to be allowed to participate in decision policy making as far as that industry is concerned. Yes, just a second. Yes. So industrial democracy. So what do you mean by industrial democracy? As I said, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That is the form of government that we have in India. So government that is by the people. The people elect the representatives. The people elect the government. The government then makes rule, but then it is after your, I mean, it is because they're representing the people. So they are whatever they are saying, it is something that the people are saying. So it is the government by the people, for the people, and of the people. So industrial democracy should also likewise mean management of a unit by the people and for the people. So the industry is being managed not only by the management, not only by the employers, but also the workers are equally contributing in making the policies as far as that industry is concerned. So that is what industrial democracy is. Now, people here would mean all those concerned with a unit: the owners, the managers, the workers, the customers, the suppliers, the state, and the society as a whole. So, I mean, in the restricted way, it would mean that it is the
Mm-hmm.
managers. In the restricted manner, it would mean what would be democracy? It would mean the workers, it would mean the employers. But in a more wider sense, what would industrial democracy mean? Industrial democracy would mean the participation of the owners, the management, the employees, the workers, the customers also, the suppliers also, the society also, the state also, the country, the government also. And as a whole, everybody participates in making the regulations as far as, or making policies as far as that industry is concerned, as far as industries are concerned. So these are all important as they have stakes, their proper functioning of the unit. So in a dynamic society, industrial relations should be based on an integrated and synthetic approach and should aim at the development of a common social, cultural, and psychological understanding on the one hand, and restraining the conflict or struggle complex on the other hand. So, if you have all these players participate in the policy decision of an industry, then what is the result going to be? So the results are going to be twofold. First of all, everybody's rights would be protected because you have representation from every section when it comes to policy making. So everybody's rights get protected. And secondly, there is less possibility of any dispute between these parties. So the disputes also sort of minimize when you have representation from all sections when it comes to policy making, decision making. So the philosophy behind industrial relation is a democratic setup is to ensure the dignity and welfare of the individual so that he may develop in a good citizen, so that he may be free from domination, regimentation, or arbitrary authority, where this authority is exercised by a management, trade union official, or government official. So, what is the entire logic? So, even why do we have a democratic society? Why is India a democratic government? Because we want to safeguard the interest of the citizens, right? So, the citizens should not be subject to authority. Power corrupts. It's a saying, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you're giving power in the hands of one person, then of course, at some point or the other, he's going to misuse the power. Instead of giving it to one person, you distribute the power amongst like a number of persons, and then they will, in sync, they will provide you with the benefits. In sync, they will use the power. So only one person with the power, there is always a chance of misuse. So in this case, also for democratic government, also we say that yes, the citizen should not be subjected to authority. There shouldn't be anybody who's sort of, making decisions for the people and decisions such that hamper the rights of the people. So, in the same manner, the management should not be an authoritative management where it is only making laws, and these laws are in any which ways violate, is making policy decisions which are violating the working conditions of the employees, violating the rights of the employees. All right. So, meaning and significance of industrial democracy. Democracy is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So, industrial democracy should likewise mean management of a unit by the people and for the people. And we've already seen, I think. So, this we've already seen. So, democracy is people here mean. So, the unit owner, the managers, the workers, the customers, the suppliers, the society as a whole. Unfortunately, however, political thinkers, social scientists, administrators, businessmen all have so far thought only of workers and only as, they have never thought of workers. See, it is the management's logic, I mean, his thought process that the company belongs to me, the industry belongs to me. So I should be the only person who should be taking any policy decisions as far as the company is concerned. The workers are working for me. I am paying them an amount of salary. So their job is to do the work according to my policies, according to my directions. So they have to follow my directions and they have to work. They have to follow my orders, not even directions, actually, orders. And they have to work because they're getting paid from me. So they have to listen to what I have to say. Uh, there's no question of them participating in the policy decisions. Instead, they should very quietly listen to what I have to say and they have to quietly follow my orders. So this was the whole temperament that management had, that the employers had. And this then gradually changed because of this authoritarian view of the employers, because of this authoritarian, mindset of the employer. There was a lot of conflict between the employers and the employees. And because of the conflict, there was a lot of unrest. It was not leading anywhere. So, it was in a way hampering the business of the industry. So then later on, it was thought that if you want a good business environment, if you want a good working environment, then there has to be less conflict. And less conflict can only be where there is representation, where there is no authoritarian mindset, where the employers themselves are respecting and protecting the rights of the worker. They're providing them with the minimum age wages, or wages in proportion to the work that they're doing. The working hours are good. They're paying them for overtime. And if they're providing them with facilities to make the work simpler. So if the employers themselves are respecting the workers, they are providing them with rights, then of course there would be less conflict. And if there is less conflict, that would lead to a better working environment. If there is a better working environment, that would of course lead to good business. So then of course, so earlier the view was no. The management, the employers stand in a position where they can make the rules. They will make the rules, and the employers, the employees, the workers are only to follow those rules. Okay, so the state sets its say as a regulator of business. The customer, the suppliers, and the society are left out. Some awareness towards society in developing through realization of social responsibility of business. So real industrial democracy will come about when major policy decisions in an industrial unit are taken by a body comprising of representatives of all party concerned, each having an equal voice in an environment that enables free and frank expression of power. So when will we be exercising true industrial democracy? Whenever there is a policy decision which is to be taken, or if the policy decision has been drafted and whether to implement such a policy decision or not, when this decision is to be taken, then a committee is formed, and this committee would comprise of representatives of every section, from employers, from employees, uh, management, trade union, maybe the suppliers, maybe the customers. So everybody's representation is in the committee, and everybody has equal rights to put their opinions before the committee, and the committee will decide on the policy decision through majority voting, maybe. So everybody has a vote. So in such manner, if you follow the procedure, then that would be a more democratic way of following so that would be more industrial democracy. So, what is the purpose of industrial democracy? Why do we want industrial democracy? We've been talking about this. So, that if there is industrial democracy, that means that there is representation from all sections of the industry when it comes to making of policy decisions. Because there is representation from every section, that means everybody is going to have rights. right? And if there is representation from every section of the industry when it comes to policy decisions, of course, policy decisions that in any way affect the rights of the workers would not be taken, because you will also have workers being represented in that, in order to decide for the policy decision. There would be less conflicts because the rights are already being protected. The workers have their rights, they're enjoying their rights. So if that is the case, then there would be less conflict. So that's the whole purpose of industrial democracy, to reduce conflict, to see that everybody participates in the policy making, to see that everybody's rights are protected. Okay, so the purpose of industrial democracy is to give the workers a sense of belongingness to the organization and a sense of commitment to various decision taking. So if an industry is involving its workers in the decision making, that gives the workers a sense of responsibility. It gives the workers a sense of belonging. So it's sort of, so when they're working in the industry, they won't be only working for the sake of it, but they will be working towards the best interest of the industry. If they feel that the industry is something that is theirs, and it is not something that is only belonging to the employers, but they also have a role to play. So if they have this, that sense of responsibility will only arise when they have the sense of belonging as far as that industry is concerned. So that gives them a sense of belonging when you also listen to the opinions of the workers when it comes to policy making, when it comes to policy decisions. In its absence, they will consider themselves to be just employees, having no commitment to the objectives or the policies, plans, and programs of the organization, and no responsibilities for anything that goes wrong in relation to them in the organization. So that's what we've been talking about. So this will in ultimate analysis, hinder the effective working of the organization and its growth. So if the workers feel that they are the ones who are also responsible for the entire development of the industry, if they are also, if that industry belongs to them also, and they have to work towards the best of the industry, then in such cases, they will work towards the best interest of the society. Otherwise, if they're just working for the sake of doing, there's no commitment from their side, there's no dedication from their side. That happens when there is no industrial democracy. Also, as I said, minimizing dispute between the industrial dispute. So this also helps in minimizing industrial disputes. So when you are at the time of making those policy, at the time of making policies, if you are involving the workers in the entire process, through representation also, maybe whatever, but if you are involving the workers, then because the workers' voices are heard, because the workers' opinions are taken, and because policies are prepared in a manner that are best suited to everyone in every player of the industry, then in such cases, of course, there would be less industrial disputes, minimized industrial disputes. So the workers cannot come and say that our rights were not protected, because the policies were made after considering their opinions, after considering their views. So they cannot later on say that no, they are not protecting it. Until and unless it's being implemented in the way that it has been written, then there would be minimum industrial disputes. So what are the prerequisites for industrial democracy? So every citizen should be treated as an equal human being. Of course, equality, right to equality. This is given under Article 14 of the Constitution, just to give you a backdrop. So everybody has to be treated equally. So be it any kind of a worker, he has to be treated equally. Everybody is to be treated equally. Everybody's views are to be treated equally. Everybody is to be given the opportunity of putting their opinions in front of the management if they have any opinions as far as the policy making of that industry is concerned. So everybody has to be treated equally. Uh, there should be no discrimination, even when you're talking about wages. I mean, yes, in India, we cannot discriminate. So this is a very basic component of our constitution, that you cannot discriminate between people on the basis of their religion, of their caste, of their color, creed. So you cannot have any discrimination amongst people. So the same thing also would apply to an industry. There cannot be any discrimination amongst the workers. There cannot be any discrimination just because the employer is at a position where he can influence, because he is a person with power. So that doesn't mean that he gets more he gets more say when it comes to decision making, policy making, and the workers are not given that same right. So that also shouldn't happen. So everybody is to be treated equally, be it any section of the industry, workers, employers, everybody to be treated equally. Uh, as we see that everybody has the right of free movement in his daily life and freedom to make an autonomous contribution to the life of the community. So, if freedom is restricted by need to earn a living or by censorship or by other means, no formal arrangement for representation can create an effective democracy. So, if you're not providing your workers with freedom, the freedom that they need, if you are just burdening them with if the employers are burdening them with their policies, and the workers are not given the freedom to question those policies, maybe give opinions in respect to the policies, and they're just burdened with these policies, then of course that's going to hamper the relationship, and that is not what democracy is. You cannot just burden someone with your policies. You cannot just burden someone with your decisions until and unless you hear what that other person has, his opinion is. So the leadership should be removable by and responsible to those who are led. So leadership should not be permanently controlled by some political party or loyal to a narrow social stratum. So again, we see this, the management, the employers, they come up with policies which in way hamper the the workers, but then the workers cannot do anything about it. They cannot sort of change the leadership. They cannot, because they're the employers. How can they change the leadership? But according to the industrial democracy requirement, the leadership should be changeable, replaceable. So if the leader, the person who is leading, is not capable enough to protect the interests of those who are being led, then the ones who are being led should also have the right to change the leader who would be able to safeguard their interest. A leader would be who would be very effective in representing the interests of the ones who he is leading. So there should always be a way through which the leadership can be changed so that the ones who are led have a better position. Their rights could be safeguarded. So these are the prerequisites of industrial democracy. So these conditions are equally, as I said, we saw those three conditions: equality, freedom to movement, and leadership change. So these three components are very important when it comes to democracy. So if you draw an analogy, Indian citizens have equal rights. So for example, when voting is concerned, suppose for the legislature, for the parliament, when you vote for the center, everybody has the right to vote. You are not giving somebody two votes just because he belongs to a certain religion, or you don't take away the right to vote from a person just because he belongs to a certain religion. So everybody has the equal right to vote. We know this. So everybody has the equal right, irrespective of the fact that he belongs to a certain religion or that he's of a certain status in the society, that he is of a certain color. So irrespective of all these factors, everybody has one vote to cast. So that is equality. Freedom of movement, we are given the right to freely move, and this freedom of movement helps us uh, for a growth, right? And the last is that if we are not happy with the representatives that we have elected, then of course we can overturn and we can have other representatives, elected. So this happens, right? This happens in the Indian democracy. We can change the people, the representatives, if we're not happy with the way the representatives are working. This provision has been given. So these things also would apply to industrial relations. So these conditions are equally applicable to industrial democracy as well. For operationalizing industrial democracy, some additional care is to be taken. So first, since workers participate in the process of decision making mainly through their representatives, so the representatives could be trade unions, they could be unified, people just sort of coming together, like in, just a team, unified team. Independent and strong union movement is necessary. So again, who is representing the will of the employees? It could be a trade union. So generally, it is a trade union which raises voice, and they're the representatives of the employees. So because you want the workers also to participate in the decision making, so they should do it through their representatives. So as I said, through the representative, and all workers should have the right to be a part of the trade union. And that again, that would that the, again, irrespective of their caste, color, creed, so there cannot be any discrimination. So everybody has the right to be a part of the trade union. Next, the management and acceptance. So secondly, management must accept unionism and work with it. So the management, the employers cannot say that no, the workers cannot, like, form a group together. So they cannot form a union together. So this is again a constitutional fundamental right, that forming a union for the protection of rights. So this is a fundamental right, and this is being given under the Constitution. So the management also cannot say no, we do not want a trade union. So the management cannot deny this right that is given to the workers. The workers can then group together, they can unite together to form a union so that they can work against the powerful um, leader, the powerful management, the powerful employer. The employer is said to be powerful, right? He has money power, he has could also have political power. So the employer is powerful. So in order for the workers to fight against the employer, you cannot have all the workers, separately fight against it. They need to be unified. They need to have a unity amongst themselves. And then there will be a trade union which will be representing them. Thirdly, public policy should facilitate and encourage voluntary collective bargaining. Collective bargaining where the trade union, the union of all the workers, the unified workers, they and the management, they sit and they try to come to middle grounds as far as the dispute is concerned. So whatever are the claims of the workers and the defenses of the employers, they will sit down, they will try to come to middle ground. So they'll negotiate on the dispute, and they will try to come to middle grounds, and through negotiation they will try to settle their disputes through collective bargaining. So they'll try to bargain, negotiation, bargain. So they'll try to come to bargaining. So we'll be talking, as I said, we'll be talking about collective bargaining in greater length. If you've seen your syllabus, we have collective bargaining as a separate topic. So we'll be talking about collective bargaining. So the ideal kind of industrial democratization would mean ensuring that workers are in a position to influence the decisions taken at the top. Since the traditional process of management works from top to bottom, there is need to integrate both these systems without jeopardizing the objectives of the business. It is no doubt it is no doubt difficult to reach the ideal, but some efforts can be made in this direction, and several forms have been tried with some degree of success in some countries, like the joint consultation that is in the UK, co-determination in West Germany, self-management in Yugoslavia, works committee, joint management councils, shop councils, and plan councils in India. So these are methods where the employees also participate in the decision making, in the policy making of the company, of the industry. Uh, Joint consultation, what does that mean? So where the employees will be sitting together, there will be consultations with the employees, and then there would be policy decisions taken. So co-determination also where the employees together sit and they determine the policies of the industry. That is co-determination, right? So possible gains. Now, what are you going to gain out of policy democracy? If industrial democracy, why do you even want industrial democracy? What is it that you're going to gain? So with greater share of workers in making decisions that affect their work, there would be less likelihood for them taking any actions that lead to interruption of work. So this will lead to industrial peace. So as I already said, that when the workers themselves are participating in the decision making, in the policy making, So there are less chances of any dispute. There are less chances of any conflict between the employers and the employees. Less chances, right? So then in such cases, that is going to lead to industrial peace. There's going to be no dispute. Going to be no disruption of work. Whenever there's a dispute, that would lead to strikes. If there is a strike, then there would be disruption of work. There would be stoppage of work, and that is going to resulting to uh, uh, you know uh, the slowdown of the industry. That is not going to result in the development of the industry. So, with peaceful resolution of industrial conflicts, there would be reduction in loss of production. So, even if there is dispute, but because this is democracy, you already have a policy wherein dispute resolution, there could be ways through which disputes could be resolved. And that again is to agreed between by the employers and the employees. Both of them have agreed to various dispute resolution methods. And these peaceful dispute resolution methods then help in again, there's no loss in production. So reduction in loss of production, because then if there are peaceful methods, then the workers will not resort to methods that are more problematic for the industry, like strikes. They will not resort to those methods. So if they know that there are other methods through which they can have their disputes resolved, they can have the management listen to what they have to say. And if the management any which ways is listening to their views, and if the management and they can sit together, the employees can sit together and they can have a dispute resolution, then why not? So that is, and democratization may lead to human happiness in the industrial community. This will possibly lead to a decline in voluntary absenteeism, sickness, accidents, labor turnover, and other symptoms of maladjustment. So because the workers' view is important, because the workers are consulted, uh, of course they're going to be happy. They are uh, they are going to be happy with the management, and because they're going to be happy with the management, so there will be less conflicts. Because there will be less conflicts, more production. Yes, good afternoon, Vishal.
Hi ma'am, sorry there was a internet issue. I joined very late.
Okay. Yes, I think I have already covered most
No
of
worries, not a
industrial
problem.
democracy. You will have the recording shared with you, so that won't be a
Sure.
problem, because it's already 1 hour. We've
Yeah, yeah,
already
I understand.
moved forward. So I'll just complete this one slide and then I'll move on to industrial piece. So there, I think you will be able to understand what is going on.
Sure.
So this one slide left for industrial democracy. I'll just complete that and then we'll move to industrial piece. So industrial democracy is nothing but the workers' participation in the management. So ideally, it is the managers, the management, the employers who take all the policy decisions, who make all the policies for the companies, for the industries. But when the workers are also participating in the management of the industry, then we call it as industrial democracy. So, if perfect democracy is just an ideal which can be attempted and approached as proximately and humanly as possible, it is more so in industrial democracy, where superior subordinate relationships are more prominent between the employer and employee, managers and workers, and between one level of hierarchy of organization and the other. Some efforts have been made in this direction in various countries, and these are various forms of what we call as the workers' participation. So, perfect democracy can never be attained. There is always going to be this superior, inferior, or a subordinate relationship between the workers and the employees and the management. So, of course, that is always going to be there. And so there have been ways in which the workers' participation has been enhanced, so that there is less dispute. So workers' participation is not the same thing as industrial democracy. Democracy is an ideal and an ultimate goal that should be approached for the benefit of the employees, the industry, and the society as a whole, whereas workers' participation is a process through which efforts are being made to approach the goal. So, workers' participation is only the first step towards industrial democracy. Workers just, if you're allowing the workers to participate in the policy decision makings, doesn't mean that it is you've attained industrial democracy. It is just a step towards the goal. Industrial democracy is the goal, and a step towards industrial democracy is the participation of the workers in policy making, in policy decision making. Workers' participation is thus an essential step in the direction of industrial democracy. It is believed that workers' participation in management enhances productive efficiency, fosters industrial harmony, enriches human personality, renders workers' participation a vehicle of industrial democracy. Workers' participation today is no longer a question of whether, but of how. So it is not a it is not disputed whether workers are to be participating in the management or not. So workers are now given the right to participate, but how do they participate now? That is the question. So it is whether they are allowed or not. That is not the question anymore. They should always be participating in the management of the company. But how do you allow them to participate? That is a question now. So of course, that's one thing that leads to democracy, industrial democracy. So with that, I'm done with industrial democracy. I will now talk about industrial peace. Yes, Vishal, is the slide visible to you?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. Let's talk about industrial peace now. So, industrial peace itself means where there are less conflicts. Of course, wherever there are less conflicts, there are better relationship between the employers and employees. If there are less conflict, of course, the environment is going to be more peaceful. There's going to be in harmony. There's going to be harmony in the working of the industry, and of course, that's going to foster uh, greater production in the industry. So, mere absence of industrial unrest does not mean that there are good industrial relations. Industrial peace is the fruit of improved industrial relations and better management of human resources over time. So, inter union rivalry has deplorable consequences both for the organization and the workers. It is not only the conflict between the employers and the employees, but you also have conflict between two trade unions sometimes. You can have multiple trade unions, so there could also be a conflict between two trade unions, and that could also result in the because two trade unions could have different ideologies. They could have different levels of rights that they want to protect as far as their workers are concerned. So there could be a dispute. There could be a rivalry between the two trade unions. So this could also lead to industrial unrest. So just because there is no dispute, but if still a very tensed environment in the industry, that is also not industrial peace. So industrial harmony means the state of relative peace in the organization, which involves absence of strike, lack of trust among the work group or union, uh, peaceful relationship between unions and management of the organization, positive involvement or participation of the employees. So the organization productivity, performance, and profit depends on the critical factor, which is named as industrial harmony. So what does industrial harmony mean? It means that there is a peaceful relationship between the management and the union, the workers and the employers, that there is a good relationship. There is trust between the two. There is trust between the union and the employer. There's this factor of trust between the employer and the employee. Then there is, of course, as we said, that in order to attain industrial democracy, the first step is where the employees participate, the workers participate in the decision making of the employers. It is not only the employers who are doing all the decision making, but the employees also participate in the decision making. Then we say that yes, it's a healthy environment. So this is, and in order for the industry to, be productive, it to be performing well, it to be a profit generating industry, we need to have industrial peace. And then only the industry will be able to, uh, you know, to maybe to reach its objective, to develop. So the concept and definition of industrial peace. So the concept of peace is clear, but its definition is difficult. So it broadly implies cooperation between labor and capital, the absence of industrial unrest, which is the results of workers' discontent, which in turn is mainly due to economic reasons, but for which social, psychological, and political forces are also responsible. So, some of the well known definitions, there are some definitions that I've provided. But first of all, let's talk about what are the key concepts, what are the key ingredients if you're talking about the definition of industrial peace. So the key ingredients are, first of all, that there has to be cooperation between the labor and the management. There is a cooperation between the two of them, and that cooperation is going to lead to good industrial relationships. If they're not cooperating with one another, that means that there are conflicts between the two, and that is not industrial peace or industrial harmony. And there should be absence of any industrial unrest. Basically, economic reasons lead to unrest. Most of the times, economic reasons lead to unrest. So there could be other factors also which are equally responsible for unrest. There could be social factors, there could be psychological factors, there could be political forces. Sometimes these trade unions do, work in the interests, in political interests. So sometimes this also happens. So even if there is no real reason for a dispute between the management and the union, but the unions just to maybe threaten the management, they and under some political influence they might use the power that have been given to them, and they could might misuse the power that have been given to them. So this could also lead to unrest. So if everything is absent, whatever we talked about, and if there's cooperation, there's no unrest, industrial unrest. If there is no unrest due to whatever reasons, and if there is cooperation between the workers and the management, then we say that there is industrial peace. Yes, Vishal, you have any question?
One thing, ma'am, if there is a like dispute in terms of the workers' mind due to economic situation going on bad, let's say we're talking about a lot AI where,
Right.
right, when workers or even employer feel very sort of what we can say
Unsecure about their
yeah,
jobs.
insecure or maybe very unflexible about their how their work going to be. In
Yes.
that case, will that be included in that uh, peace or like industrial dispute? It
Yeah,
can be
so
a
there,
reason.
so we understand layoffs, right?
Hmm.
Maybe you're talking about layoffs, where now you must have seen a lot of company,
Yes, yes.
they are terminating the employment of many of their employees because they feel that these jobs can be done well
Hmm.
by maybe AI or by the use of technology. Though they don't need human interference or as
Hmm.
much human interference that was required earlier. Now they do not need that much. A job can be done by one human, uh, except when it was being done by 10. So you see a lot of layoffs or termination, I would say. So now
Hmm.
again, yes, that could be a dispute. So there could be a dispute if there. So generally now you see the employment, the companies are trying to keep the employment very contractual. I don't know if you're seeing this.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, they don't want like full like they don't want legislations to work. They want
Hmm.
the contract to be the governing document as far as the employment is concerned, so that at any point of time, once the contract expires, then whether to renew the contract or to terminate the contract, it would be their decision. So that's what they're trying to do, because for employers also, they feel that they do not, what if they don't require those employees tomorrow? So again, there could be a dispute in respect to the terms of the contract. So if that
Yes.
is also industrial dispute, yes. So if there is a dispute in terms of the contract, where the employer was supposed to say pay a certain severance pay, whatever, and he's not paid that, or
Hmm.
he was not supposed to terminate the contract in a certain manner, but he did that. So that could also, yes, that could be a dispute between them.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thank
okay.
you.
There have been such many instances, and instances also of government employment where, for example, teachers, there have been like many instances where teachers' jobs have been terminated, and at least now it is contractual. But for
Hmm.
these employees, it was the law that was protecting their jobs. So even then, law doesn't say that you cannot terminate the employment of an employee. You can, but there is a method of termination that has to be followed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're talking about the definitions. I've provided a couple of definitions. So, rooster. So industrial peace is not simply a negative concept, but also a positive one. It implies amity and goodwill between labor and capital, a condition which is both the cause and effect of fruitful cooperation. So something that is just because there is no conflict, that just because there is no dispute, that doesn't mean that it is they have attained industrial peace. So it's also negative concept, yes, that is one step, that there is no conflict. There's also a positive aspect to it, that there is more of cooperation between the employee and the employer. And because there is cooperation between the employee and the employer, that is the reason why there is much, you could say, amity. There is more, the relationship between them is more amicable, and that is leading to industrial peace. Then Arthur Kornhauser, he also gave a definition. So industrial peace signifies a condition where labor and management work together harmoniously towards their socially desirable goals. Now everybody has goals. Now the management has a goal that they have to, whatever, they have to make sure that their industry reaches a certain stage. The employees also have their personal goals, that they should be earning a certain amount of money, that they should get promotions. Everybody has goals, right? So when both the labor and the management, the employees and the employers, they work together towards their common goal, then, and they get and they're doing it together. They're not doing it by trampling onto somebody else's rights, by violating somebody else's rights. Then we say that it is industrial peace. So it's a condition.
Mhm.
Okay. Then requirements of industrial peace. Yes. So, what are the requirements of industrial peace? Conducive working environment regarding social relations, emphasis on procedural justice, physical conditions of work. So, the physical conditions of the work should be good. There should be good environment, social relations, the relationship between the employee employer. The employees need to be heard. That is one thing. If the employees are heard, then they generally do not have any conflict. So they have to be heard. So if they are heard, there is a good working environment. Their rights, there are efforts taken by the employers to protect their rights. So then, of course, there's no reason why there should be any conflict. Attentive and responsible attitude towards the organization and work on the part of all concerned parties. So, as I said, everybody has to be attentive to the other rights. So, the employers have to be attentive towards the rights of the employees. So, the employees have to pay attention to the rights of the employees to see to it that the facilities that they deserve, or what has been promised to them, is provided to them. The employees also need to see that they are working towards the betterment of the industry, and they, because their rights are getting protected, they are being heard, so it is their duty also to work with dedication. So that also, that responsibility factor, there has to be responsibility from both the sides. You cannot just have responsibility from one. So even if the employers are protecting the rights of the employees, but the employees are not ready to cooperate with the employers, their employees are only trying to harass the employers, then of course nothing's going to work. Active measures to ameliorate dissatisfaction amongst workers. So if there's any ameliorate is decreased, to decrease as much as dissatisfaction, whatever satisfaction that the work dissatisfaction that the workers have, to make sure that the workers are satisfied with the policies that are made in their, and there's policies that are made in their favor. Conducive work environment, good protective measures taken. So there are certain industries where hazardous goods or hazardous materials are used, or the machineries that are used. So they're providing them with protective measures. So if their dissatisfaction is reduced considerably, of course that is going to lead to industrial peace. Mutual respect and amicable settlement of differences in best is the best interest of the organization. Of course, going to the courts for dispute is always going to strain the relationship between two parties, be it any dispute. If the parties go to the court, of course, that's going to strain their relationship. Instead, I think we talked about the amicable methods. They are called as amicable methods. The alternative dispute resolution methods that we talked about in the last session. We talked about arbitration, conciliation, mediation. So these
Yes.
methods, they are more amicable. They are peaceful methods. So instead, because if you go to the courts, you must have heard about this. The parties are always, complaining, and they are trying to hold the other person responsible. So they don't find themselves responsible for the conflict. It's always the other person who's responsible for the conflict. So they are always complaining. They are always throwing the responsibility on the other person in courts, and thus the relationships, of course, get strained. But when you're talking about alternative methods, uh, here there is a scope that their relationship still gets maintained, because conciliation and mediation is more of a settlement term, where the two parties sit and they discuss their dispute, they try to negotiate the dispute with the help of a third person, and they try to talk it out and they try to settle it. So there is still chance for their relationship to survive. But when they go to the court, of course, their relationship is not going to survive. So this peaceful methods, amicable methods will still keep their relationship intact and will not spoil their relationship. Yes, you have a question?
No, ma'am, good.
Okay, okay. So speedy communication of decisions, especially those affecting workers' rights, workers' involvement in such and other decisions. So if there's any decision, policy decision that has been taken that in any way is going to, affect the rights of the workers, then they have to be informed. The workers have to be immediately informed with those decisions. And of course, their views are to be taken in respect to those policy decisions. So cooperation is one a very important element when we are talking about industrial peace. If there's no cooperation between the workers and the employers, the employees and the employers, there's no cooperation between them, then nothing's going to work. If there's no, I mean, if both have to cooperate for that. So if there is any decision that is taken by the management which is going to turn out to affect the rights of the workers, then this decision is to be as soon as possible. They have to inform the workers of such decision. Opinion of the workers are to be taken in respect to those decisions. And generally, for policy decisions, the workers are to be involved in such policy decisions through representation, maybe, but they always, you need to have them involved in making such policy decisions. All right, and integration of employees in the organization. So the employees should not feel left out. That was always one of the important criteria. The employees should not feel left out. They should feel as if the industry belongs to them. That's the Gandhian principle. We'll also be talking about the approaches and the theories as in respect to industrial relation. That would be the next topic that we'll be discussing, industrial theories in respect to industrial relations. So the Gandhian principle is integration of the employees in the entire system. So you try to include them in every process. The management tries to include the employees in every process, and because you're including them in the process, they have this sense of belonging to the industry, and because they have this sense of belonging, that gives them a sense of responsibility, and they will dedicate to the work of the industry. Otherwise, if they feel left out, if they feel that the management doesn't care about them, they are not going to have that dedication for that industry. So to involve them in the day-to-day working of the industry, that helps them to form a relationship with the industry, to feel that yes, they belong to the industry and the industry belongs to them. That is going to help, and that's going to foster good relationships between the employee and the employer. Okay, then proper management of employees pay and benefit schemes. So if their pays are in proportion to the work, in proportion to their if whatever, and if their benefit schemes also, of course, that is going to reduce the conflicts. Most of the conflicts, if you see, are economical in nature. So they are in relation to the salaries, the wages. So if you are providing them with the benefits, if you're providing with them with the salaries that they deserve, and you provide them with benefits, for example, benefits in respect to overtimes. There's certain bonuses they're given for those who perform very well. You must be doing that, right, in your industries, in your companies, where if a person is he's performing exceptionally well, then you sort of give him certain incentives, you give him certain bonuses. So if you have these benefit schemes provided to the workers, of course, then that helps in maintaining harmony in the industry. The management should also look after the social and other economic needs of the employees. Uh, so I don't know, even the Maternity Benefit Act, if you've heard about it, you in HR, you must have heard about this, yes. So the Maternity Benefit Act also gives a lot of benefits, right? So there was an amendment that was, so the new act which talks about a creche service that has to be provided. Uh, so all these new amendments and these new changes have been made so that you provide more benefits to the workers and you look into their needs. So it again fosters good relationship between the employers and employees. So transparency of industrial policies would also be leading to conducive functioning, democratic functioning. As I said, if the employees understand what are the policies that are going to be taken by the employers, and the employees are also participating in these policy makings of the management, then there is transparency. Nothing is kept away from the workers, that the workers know this is like totally transparent policies. Then that also helps in conducive environment. All right, so management and employees should have mutual confidence and cooperating attitude, which leads to new policy directions through free and open-minded discussions on matters of industrial progress. Again, same thing. So cooperation, they should be trusting each other, they should be working together, and that would of course lead to industrial peace. Arrangement for the need based training of workers. So again, workers have to be trained. So if you're providing them training so that they will skillfully be working in that industry in order to maybe enhance their skills, if trainings are provided, then of course that also helps. We do this, nowadays lawyers have been asked to provide training to workers, to employees in respect to their rights. They are trained in respect to also, they are also being trained in respect to AI nowadays. So that is happening. So to enhance their skills, if the employers themselves are providing them with training, of course that also helps in building a good relationship between the two. Okay. So again, system of group bargaining to manage conflicts bit better. So if there is still a conflict, then instead of resorting to methods that would, strain their relationships, to resort to methods that would try and resolve the disputes in much peaceful manner. So that's known as collective bargaining. We'll be talking about collective bargaining in great lengths. But collective bargaining is something where the workers, through their trade unions, they sit with the employers and they try to bargain. They try to negotiate in their conflict and they try to come to a middle ground with the management. So this helps because they are negotiating. So this helps. This is much better than straining the relationship. So instead of having a collective bargaining, if they're straining their relationships through strikes or maybe going to court with their disputes, and that strains their relationship, this is much better manner. Most importantly, economic growth, which distributes reward equitably, creates employment opportunities, and alleviates poverty, is the only lasting solution of the problem of industrial estates. So, yes, so if the company is progressing and the workers do not have a share in the progress, then of course they're going to be they're going to feel left out. So whenever a company is progressing, you will see that there are incentives that are given to the employees because they are also a part of the progress. So this sharing of what do you call it? Sharing of the rewards. That also is a very important part of integrating the employees into the entire system. So that also fosters a good relationship. That also, that makes the employees more responsible. There is more respect between the employees and the employers. So again, that unrest, the any scope for unrest would be lost. Clear so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so solutions to labor problems. Until unless you have good solutions to labor problems, industrial peace cannot be attained. So employment and training schemes. So if there are schemes for employment where not only are they given employment, they are given good conditions of employment. They given good pay, given they are provided with facilities, and there are also training schemes that are provided by the employers then of course that is going to be a solution to the labor problems, because they'll be trained, they'll be given a chance to enhance their skills. So that's going to in a way help them when it comes to working for that industry. They can also look for, so you have these internal promotions based on the skills that are developed by the employees. So they know this, that this, the skills are going to enhance, the training is going to enhance their skill, and that is going to lead to their growths in the industry. So of course they're going to work towards that, they're going to put in their best. So also labor law reforms. It's very important for our government to bring about labor law reforms. This has been the approach. We are a country which you could say we are a country where we've made these beneficial laws. These laws which benefit a given sector, because the workers were said to be the weaker sections of the society. So it was required in order to attain social justice. Social justice is justice to those who are weaker sections of the society. So in order to attain social justice, it was essential that we come up with laws that benefit the workers. You see all these labor legislations, these are laws that are favoring the workers. So again, the reason being is that because India, we have a lot of social welfare. These are known as welfare legislation. So these provide welfare to the weaker section of the society. So again, to come up with labor law reforms which are apt to the given situation right now. To make changes to the labor laws according to the change times. So that is also important. So that's the government's role in order to solve labor problems. Yes, you have questions, Vishal?
No, ma'am, good.
Okay. Impetus to research. So researching in the field of relationship more, to see to it how the relationship can be, uh, you know, uh, you could say the relationship can be turned into a relationship where there's no unrest between the two parties. We've seen that there are a lot of facilities that are given by the employers to the employees. So these facilities, when you provide these facilities to the employees, of course, there's going to be less labor problems. So these facilities, workers cooperatives, these are formed where these workers could jointly, so that group of workers, they can form these cooperatives, and these cooperatives can work for the betterment of the workers. Also, the unorganized sectors also are well represented. Their rights, just because they are unorganized, there are a lot of unorganized sectors. So in industry is an organized sector, but there are also other businesses which are unorganized. So under unorganized, so this should not only apply to industries, the organized sectors. These reforms, these problems should also be, these solutions also should be to the unorganized sectors. There also the employers should not be, exploiting their employees. So unorganized sectors also, these reforms should be brought about. The labor should be protected, the worker should be protected, and that would foster good relationship. Right. Yes. So ways of achieving industrial peace. So, nurturing a healthy industrial climate, management and union cooperation, we've already seen these. Ensuring psychological satisfaction. There has to be, there are certain people have certain mindsets, and you have to sometimes satisfy those mindsets. So it's like more psychological. So you have to make sure that the workers are also psychologically satisfied with the facilities that are provided by the employers. All benefits to the employees, effective utilization of all the resources, speedy settlement of grievances, workers' education program, healthy and stable trade union, proper revision of wages, good working conditions. So these are the ways through which industrial peace can be achieved. Sometimes even the trade unions lead to disruption. If the trade, as I said, the trade unions could be politically influenced, or they could also be under the influence of the employers. And then, like they will show on the outside that they're working for the rights of the employees, but maybe they are working for the employers, or they are more politically influenced. So that also could lead a lot of problem and a lot of unrest when you're talking about an industry. So to make sure that these trade unions are They are stable, they are not under any influence, they are they are fulfilling the objective for which they were made, the objective which is to safeguard the interest of the employees, of the workers, to make sure that the employer workers are well represented before the management. So that's the entire objective. So if there is any dispute, to make sure that they talk the dispute out, they try to settle the dispute with the employers, the management, through collective bargaining. So that is the entire objective of a trade union. So the trade union should not be influenced by the employers or the political parties. The trade union should be an organization that is only working for the rights of the workers and nothing else. So that is also very important in order to in order to attain industrial peace and in order to foster good relationships between industries. Clear so far? So industrial peace, is that clear?
Sorry, ma'am, I was speaking on mute. Yes.
Yes, okay. So now the next topic that I want to talk about are the different theories when it comes to industrial relationship. So if you've seen your syllabus, there are three theories that are mentioned. One is just 1 minute, I'll just share my. Yes. So theories, they're talking about three theories. So there's a system theory, there's a pluralist theory, and the Gandhian theory. So your syllabus talks about two theories. So models of industrial relations. Yeah. So what are theories? Generally, see, if you anything to do with law, if you've seen that every law that has been passed, there is some theory, or any principle that has been propounded, there's always a theory attached to it, that why should this be done. So there's always a theory attached to it. Why should a certain law be passed? Then there is a theory attached to it, that yes, for this reason, a certain law should be passed. So you could have number of people giving you number of theories, and there would also be criticisms to those theories. So that is the entire. So why? So when you're talking about industrial relations, also there are certain theories which came up from different. So one was given by Dunlop. So he was a professor at Harvard. So he gave the systems theory. So the other was a plurals theory, which was also given by one of the professors. And of course, you know who Mahatma Gandhi is. So he gave another theory. Mahatma Gandhi is said to be a person who believed in social justice. So this principle of social justice was brought about by Mahatma Gandhi. So he is the person who wanted to safeguard the interests of the weaker sections of the society. And of course, he wanted to bring about law reforms when it comes to industries, when it comes to employment. He wanted to bring about law reforms, and he wanted to bring about labor legislations, laws that protected workers. So he was the one who sort of brought about these changes. I mean, of course, he was the propounder of these social justice theories. So theories are the body of propositions from which uniformities can be derived. A theory should attempt to explain why certain events happen and how and why the rules of the systems change. So why does a certain thing happen? There's a theory attached to everything, right? Why does anything happen? Then you have different people giving their theories. Okay, this is the reason why this is happening, or the other person saying some other reason. They're talking about the other reason. So in the same manner, for industrial relation also, there are certain theories. These theories which were passed by the different. They like more of socialists. They're talking about sociology. The first initiative refers to theorization of Dunlop's concept of industrial relations. So basically, industrial relations, according to, has two main stands in theorizing. One group, externalists, lays emphasis on environmental factors like state of technology. So now there are two things that has an effect on industrial relationship, according to the theories. Two things. One is external factors. External factors like the market. So whether there is more demand in the market, if there is more demand for a given industry in the market, then that industry has to produce more products. If it has to produce more, then it is going to need more employees. So if it is going to need more employees, then you talk about industrial relationships. So the external factors always play an important role when it comes to industrial relationship. So it could also be, as we see right now, we are seeing technology. it's an external factor. Now, this technology is also playing a very important role in employment. So the number of employees are decreasing, or the scope of work for employees is changing now. So, of course, so that is also, so these external factors also contribute to industrial relationship. And then you also have internal factors. All right. So, that's why. So it's saying industrial relations, they have two main theories, two main stands. So one is the externalist slave emphasis. You could say that there are two group of people, and one feels that industrial relationships are affected due to external factors. The other group feels that the industrial relations are affected due to internal factors. Now, if the industrial relationships are affected external factors, and what are those external factors? We just talked about that. So it could be the market, it could be the, you know, the technology, it could be the laws. The laws are also external, so it could be the legal framework. So these are the external factors. Then there are internal factors which also affect the relationship. So it could be the relationship between the employer and the employee. So how much cooperation is between the employer and the employee? So how much, what role does the employee play in the decision making? So all this also sort of affects the industrial relationship. So two groups, you could say. One says that no, it is the external factors that matter more, and the other says no, it is the internal factor that matter more when you're talking about industrial relationship. So both these groups, just give me a second. Vishal, can you just give me 2 minutes?
Yep, sure.
Oh. Vishal, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry for the disturbance.
No worries.
Okay, so we were talking about the two groups. Now, so generally, if you see, both the factors are equally responsible for the industrial relationship. So it could be both the factors that contribute equally in order to for the maintenance of industrial relationship. But you have different approaches that people have for a given principle. So different approaches, and we're going to be talking about these different approaches. So a general theory of industrial relation must incorporate both the conflictive and the consensus factors. The industrial relation theory must go further than merely codifying practices and cope with the multidimensional. This is just an introduction. So we're going to be talking about three theories.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, when did you lose me? I don't know how I went on
No,
mute.
no, just 5 seconds back.
Okay, so I was audible till then.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the theories. Yeah, we're talking about the different theories, and I said your syllabus talks about three different theories that we're going to be studying as far as industrial relations is concerned. So these are
Mhm.
approaches that they have as to how industrial relationships are maintained and what are industrial relationships. So that they have these theories. So the Dunlop system theory, the pluralist theory of Flanders, and the trusteeship theory of Mahatma Gandhi. So we're going to be looking into these three theories. So first we'll talk about the Dunlop theory, system theory. This was a theory that was propounded by Dunlop, Professor Dunlop. He was a professor at Harvard University. So he developed this theory in 1958. I've also given you the year. It is within this perspective that Dunlop analyzes industrial relations system as a subsystem of the society. So he says it is a subsystem of the society. An industrial relations system at any one point of time in its development is regarded as comprised of certain actors, certain contexts, an ideology which binds the industrial relations system together, and a body of rules created to govern the actors at the workplace and work community. So according to him, what is industrial relationship? It is comprised of certain players. Who are the players? He's saying that it is a system. Industrial relation is nothing but a system, and the system is comprised of players. Players generally would mean the employer, the employee, the government, which also makes laws that was also going to affect the relationship between the employer and the employee. So it is nothing but a system. And this system is working and this system is formed. It is a part of the society. And this is a system. So industrial relation is nothing but a system. So this is his theory, his approach about industrial relationship. So here we will be talking about all these factors in detail. So he says that they are players, they are different players who are involved in industrial relationship. They have certain ideologies, common ideologies. They have common ideologies. They have certain contexts, and there is again. So we're going to be talking about these different factors in detail. So he suggested that industrial relation system should be divided into three interrelated elements. There are actors, there are different people who are responsible, who are part of this industrial relationship, an ideology binding the industrial relationship system together, and the body of rules created to govern the actors at workplace. So three things. So the players, their ideologies, which mostly is common. Third, laws that are passed by the government that is going to affect the ideology and the environment in which these players are sort of working. So three things. So let's talk about the actors in the system. So who are the actors in the system? So it is the hierarchy of managers and their representatives in supervision. That is the employers generally, the people who make rules, the people who are in a position to make rules for, who are said to have a more dominating position in the entire organization, managers. Then the hierarchy of workers and any spokesman that they have, and specialized government agencies. So three players. So it is the employer, employee, and the government. So generally, employer represented through their managers, employees, they could also be represented through their trade unions, and the government agencies. You could, also. Of course, so that's the third uh, player who is responsible. Who are when you're talking about, so you what Dunlop is saying, that industrial relation is a system. It is a system, and the system first comprises of these actors. So this is one thing. So these are the people who comprise of the system. Then the context of a system. So in an industrial relation system, the context or the determinants are of greater importance. So the significant aspects of the environment in which the actors interact are the technological characteristics of the workplace, the work community, the market or budgetary constraints that impinge on the actors, and the locus and distribution of power in the larger society. So what is the reason for this system to be formed, or what are the factors that are going to affect the system? So of course, what are the factors that are going to affect the system? That is the context. Okay, so the factors that are going to affect the system are, of course, the technology. Okay, oh, am I audible? Something happened, I went on hold, I think.
No, no, audible, ma'am.
Audible, na? Okay, so the context is very important. So the context is the factors that affect the relationship, the system, because we are talking about industrial relation as a system. So what affects the system? So the technology affects the system, the market position affects the system, the financial condition of the employer affects the system, because if the financial condition of the employer is not good, he's generally going to terminate most of his employees, or he's not going to then he is not going to employ more employees, right? So of course, that is going to always have an effect on the system, the industrial relationship. Uh, as I said, so the budgetary constraints, the government also, the government rules, the government laws, they're also going to have, they're going to also going to play a role in deciding the system. this system of industrial relationship. So that these are the factors that affect the system. The
Ba-
ideology of an industry, sorry, yes.
so basically, in this context, we are talking internal and external environment, basically.
Generally, yes, external. Generally external.
Yeah,
Something that is if you see technology external, budgetary
yes.
constraints could also be market, or
Market
these
condition.
could also be external. Yeah, so generally external reasons which are affecting the system.
Yeah.
Okay, then the ideology of the industrial system. So now we're talking about the philosophy, the system, both. Now the system comprises of both the employee and the employer. So what are their ideology? Generally, they have a set of ideas. Now ideology are the principles that you follow. So generally it is said that for this system to work, now this is internal. When you're talking about ideology, this is more internal. When you're talking about the context, we're talking about the external factors. When you're talking about ideology, this is more of the internal factors. So what are the ideologies of the employees? What are the ideologies of the employers? So when there is a problem with the ideology, then there is an internal conflict.
Yeah.
Yes, you understand that, right? So now
Yes.
what this presupposes, this system presupposes that their ideologies, they sort of coincide. They have the same ideology. That is working towards gain. So the employers want the industry to thrive. So they want the industry to develop. The employees want their interest. Na? I mean, if the industry flourishes, if the industry thrives, of course, that in turn going to also affect them. So they will also progress in life because of the industry. So that ideology will also integrate the system. Okay, so if they have the common ideologies, if their ideologies meet, if their ideologies coincide, then that is also going to affect the industrial relation. That is going to affect the system. So this that is ideology. So the internal factors. Context would be the external factors. The establishment of rules. So the actors in a given context establish rules for the workplace and the work community, including those governing contracts among the actors in an industrial relation system. This network or web of rules consists of procedures for establishing rules, the substantive rules, and the procedures for deciding their application to particular situations. The establishment of these procedures and rules is the center of attention in an industrial relations system. Now, we are talking this in terms of a system. You have players which comprise of the system. You have external factors which affect the system. You have ideologies of all the players who are part of the system. Then again, what are all these things going to, I mean, end up doing is they, of course, in order to make sure that everything works in harmony, and everything is disciplined, there are going to be a set of rules and laws that are going to be passed. So it's generally employers make those policy decisions. The policies are made by the employers. But when you have both of them cooperating in making those policy decisions, then of course there's going to be better industrial relationship. But so the actors, they establish rules. Okay, all the actors. So you also have government making rules. So there are rules made, and these rules they talk about. So what are these rules? These rules consist of procedures for establishing these rules. So how do you make rules? So what procedure? I don't know if you know this, that there's a procedure for any law to also come into effect. Do you know this? The parliament, so first the Lok Sabha has to pass the bill, then the Rajya Sabha will pass the
Yes.
bill. You must be knowing this, right? So there's a procedure that has been established also to make laws. So you have to first set a procedure as to how these rules are to be made. So whether the rules are to be made by the employer himself, whether the rules are to be made with the cooperation of the employees, how will the employees cooperate in rule making? So you first have to make rules in order to make procedure for making rules. Okay, so you set the procedure. Once you set the procedure, now rules can be made. Now, if the rules, so that's called a substantive rule. Substantive rules are where your rights are defined. Okay, so substantive is where you get your rights. Those are known as substantive rules. So, from where you understand what your rights are. So, once the rules are made, then the employees will know, okay, these are his rights. This is what he's not supposed to do. This is what he's supposed to do. He will be entitled to this bonus. He'll be entitled to this. His working hours would be this. So, his rights and liabilities would be defined in the rules. So once you set the procedure for making rules, you will now make rules. Once you make rules, you will also have to come up with procedures as to how to implement those rules. You will also have to implement, not just making rules on papers doesn't matter. You have to also implement those rules. So now how do you implement these rules? So everything. So this is a web. So this is a way in which policies are made in a given industry. So now if you make these policies, so these procedures, rules, they are always the center. If these rules and procedures are made with the cooperation of the workers, of course, the workers are going to be satisfied, the employees are going to be satisfied, these rules and procedures, and if they're going to work with, in a disciplined manner, respecting those rules and procedures. If they don't like it, if they have not been, if they have not been, what do you say, if they're not participated, if they've not asked, if their opinions did not matter, then of course they're not going to like these rules. And always, so disputes would always occur in respect to the rules. Dispute would occur in respect to the implementation of the rules. So if the rules have been made, but if the rules are not being followed by the employer, then that implementation factor is also going to lead to disputes. Understanding so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I just, just made a diagram out of Dunlop's approach. So environmental forces. So as we said, external factors. So they are environmental forces which affect the system. Because Dunlop is, he's like, what do you say? He's considering industrial relation like a system. So he's giving it that approach. So he's giving an approach where he's saying that industrial relation is nothing but a system that has been formed. And what are who are the parties that are involved in the system? So he tells you who are the different parties that are involved in the system. And then what are the external factors that could, I mean, the external factors that could influence this system. So as I've held here, so environmental forces, so there could be market problems, there could be budgetary constraints, technology, distribution of power in the society. So all these factors, these are external factors, laws that are passed by the government. These could also be, so again, participation in the system, we'll come to that. So these factors could, affect the system. Then who participates in the system? So you have the union, you have the management, trade union. So you have the trade union and the management. So trade union is representing the employees, the management represent the employers, and then you have the government. And what is the output? You have these rules that are the rules that come up. So that is the output of the system. So you understanding? Yes, Visha?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay. So that is the output of the system. All right. So there's a formula that he's given. So industrial relation is nothing but it is a function. So it is a joint function. So A actors. So ATMPI. So that's the formula that he's given for industrial relation. It's a system. It's a system that includes the factors. It is a system that includes the technological context. So it includes what influence the technology is going to have over the relationship, over the system. It includes the market context. So it is going to also talk about the constraints that are put because of the market conditions. Okay, it is going to be talking about the power context also. With change in political parties, with the change in government, you have different, you have reforms in law, you have differences in laws with change in government also. So that also is going to affect, it's an external factor, right? So that is also going to affect the system of industrial relation. And then the internal factor, that is the ideology that bind the employees and the employers together. So if they have a common ideology, of course, that is going to foster industrial relation. If they do not have common ideology, that is going to cause differences between them. So the industrial relation system is a web of rules. And what is the end result of this? The rules that are brought about. The rules in order for the employees to work, right? So the rules with which the industry works. So that is the output of all this. So according to him, this system is nothing but the rules that are made, and these rules that govern the interaction between the employer the employee, and also the government to some extent. So that is what the formulation. So he gave the formulation for industrial relationship. So is this Dunlop system theory? I mean, is it clear to you? There's still
Yes, ma'am.
some things that we need to. I think we still have a few things to discuss, but our time is over. So we'll continue in the next session. Is that fine?
Sure, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
Vishal.
ma'am. Bye.
Yes. Bye. Yes, sir.